Brown Mogotsi, one of the people implicated by Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, maintains he is an ANC member despite Fikile Mbalula, ANC SG's, denials. Meanwhile, ANC assets are getting attached by the sheriff, and Parliament gears up for its all-important Mkhwanazi inquiry. Stick around to unpack all of this and more. Spread the fire. Welcome back to SMWX. If you're new around here, I am Mpofu-Walsh. This is the Mpofu-Walsh Experience, or SMWX. My goodness, there is so much happening in our country. We were away for the weekend, but now I want to take you straight into the action because Brown Mogotsi gave an exclusive interview with the SABC challenging Fikile Mbalula's denials and claims that he is not currently a member of the ANC. Let's get right into it and take a look at what Brown Mogotsi said, and then I'll give you some more context behind why this matters.
I've seen those communications and the utterances by the Secretary General. But let me confirm something to you. I'm a member of the ANC in good standing. I have also, attempted to send you some proof that my membership only expires at the end of October. But it is not the Secretary General who has the power to do that. My branch, which I have communicated with, and they are aware that my membership only expires at the end of October.
Wow. So let's situate ourselves. Brown Mogotsi is one of the people that General Mkhwanazi has implicated. He alleges, Mkhwanazi that is, that Brown Mogotsi was an intermediary between Vusumuzi Katmatlala, currently serving before court for the attempted murder of Tebogo Tobejane, his girlfriend, an alleged crime boss, that's Matlala, and Senzo Mchunu, being the Minister of Police who's currently on gardening leave. So Brown Mogotsi allegedly intermediated between these two to secure political favors for Mchunu. So Mkhwanazi says that Brown Mogotsi was the person in some ways pulling the strings between the underworld and the political class, at least in this particular instance. Now, of course, the ANC has moved to distance itself from Brown Mogotsi because it's not a good look to have someone who's implicated in potentially linking the criminal underworld with politics as a member of your party. Now, Senzo Mchunu has already admitted that Brown Mogotsi is a comrade of his or an associate of his, or he says he's not an associate, he's a comrade. But recently, Mbalula came out and said, no, Brown Mogotsi is no longer a member of the ANC, his membership lapsed. And that's why that clip you just watched matters, because as I record this today, Brown Mogotsi says, nope, according to me, I am a member and only my branch can decide. Look, here's the real problem behind all of this. It really doesn't matter whether Brown Mogotsi signed a piece of paper to say that he's an ANC member or not. This whole idea that he's not an ANC member is really just a gimmick on behalf of the ANC, because the fact is he's linked to the ANC. Either he was a member or he is a member, or he continues to be a supporter and his membership has lapsed, or he still is a member and he's also a supporter. The fact of the matter is that the ANC has adduced no evidence, Fikile Mbalula has adduced no evidence to show that Brown Mogotsi wasn't actually talking to Senzo Mchunu, that he wasn't part of the CR17 campaign, as many journalists have now alleged, including recently Kanita Hunter. And effectively, Brown Mogotsi is linked to the ANC, whether he has an official membership card or not. But of course, this whole attempt to try and deflect from this on the ANC's part has now backfired because the story has come back tenfold, with Brown Mogotsi effectively challenging the ANC to show him that he is not a member. And now, of course, ANC officials are back on the back foot because they have to now prove their claims that he's not a member, with him claiming that he is a member. It's a mess. It's a big mess. And it just shows that the ANC is completely flat-footed in this moment. It has no idea how to get out from under the dramatic revelations that have been leveled against Brown Mogotsi and the party as a whole. So that's the first clip, but it goes deeper because I can tell you what, fam, ANC people are starting to attack each other as it becomes apparent that the story is not going away. Now, because Mbalula has attacked Brown Mogotsi, guess what? He now attacks Mbalula, placing forth allegations that Mbalula is himself linked to figures in the criminal underworld. Have a look at this.
The way Fikile is doing it, on the utterances, let me give you one. He traveled with Vusi KK abroad. Vusi Keke has been convicted and sentenced for the killing of Wandile Bosman. It was also shown that he was with Vusi Keke 2-3 days before Wandile Bosman was murdered. I know Boswani's family. With our interaction, they showed me some proof that actually Boswani gave Fikile Mbalula 1 million rand and he promised to pay it back. Today, the money is not paid. I'm saying, in as much as he was with Vusi Keke, currently Vusi Keke has been sentenced. Do we have to label him? Do we have to tell him you can't be a member of the ANC? You are traveling with someone who's been convicted and sentenced? That's what I'm saying.
So these are some serious allegations, and of course, at this point, they are allegations. I'm sure Mbalula would vehemently deny them. But the fact of the matter is that a consistent pattern keeps emerging. Why are there these constant allegations of senior ANC leaders who are closely linked to crime figures? Let me decode that a bit for you, because what Brown Mogotsi is saying here is that, oh, you want to come at me because I was related to criminal underworld figures? I'm going to show you that you were related to criminal underworld figures. Now, Vusi Keke is someone who is in jail, convicted of murdering a certain Mr. Bozwana, who himself was also seen as a very rich businessman. And it's not exactly clear, but those murders seem to be around tenders, again, linked to figures who were tenderpreneurs close to the ANC. And Mr. Bozwana was murdered himself. But what Brown Mogotsi is saying is that Bozwana gave Mbalula 1 million rands, and also that he went on an international trip with Vusi Keke, who himself, as I say, is currently serving time for being the mastermind of a murder probably linked to ANC Northwest contracts. This is serious stuff. This is nothing that Mkhwanazi said revealed this side of the equation. So what we are starting to see is that those who are going down are going to bring others down with them as the ship continues to sink. And now Mogotsi is also giving ANC leaders pause for thought, because he can reveal things about them or unleash allegations into the public sphere that can be extremely damaging. And this can also provoke questions about how these allegations can be refuted. Is it possible that they can be refuted? It should be fairly easy to refute them. If it never happened, then there would never be any record of it happening. But if evidence does emerge to corroborate at least these claims, then it looks dicey for the ANC, because more and more leaders begin to be involved in this web of malfeasance. Even if it isn't true, just the mudslinging itself is very bad for the ANC, especially when the mud gets slung at senior members of the party like Fikile Mbalula, who recently just had some more accusations leveled against him from AfriForum in relation to a 2016 trip to Dubai. And we know that, this stuff can really threaten to bring the party down from inside, as comrades, cadres, whether they are members or not, start going for each other. So it's serious, and Mogotsi links Mbalula to other serious figures in the criminal underworld, and let's see how Mbalula moves to refute those claims. But again, as a senior ANC leader, you don't want to constantly be having to refute claims and being on the back foot. 1 minute, it's refuting claims about AfriForum and his trip to Dubai, which wasn't ultimately pursued by the NPA, it has to be said. But then no sooner have you dealt with that than a new set of allegations come out. And of course, now Mogotsi will have to substantiate some of this at the commission as well. So I'm sure he'll be asked about this at the commission. I'm sure he'll be asked about this at the parliamentary inquiry. How do you know these things? Do you have evidence for these trips linked to the ANC-SG? So it's rough for the ANC at the moment. Actually, it gets even rougher because assets were attached by the sheriff recently. And we really need to look into this because it's quite worrying. A report from Johan Ebers at News 24 states that the ANC is in deep trouble over 85 million debt owed to Ezulwini Investments. I actually did a video on this in late 2023, but let me break this one down for you because you're not going to believe it if you haven't heard the story. It's one of the stories to keep your eye on because, again, this could get serious. So in the 2019 election, the ANC enters into a deal for campaign posters with a company called Ezulwini, funnily enough. heaven in Zulu or Xhosa, and or Zulu, and he says, the ANC says, we need these posters, can you please provide them to us? Now, there's a bit of confusion because the person on the side of the poster company is dealing with not high-ranking ANC officials, but the chief of staff of the head of elections, who was the head of elections, Fikile Mbalula, so his chief of staff at the time, and a finance representative of the ANC who reported to Paul Mashatile at the time. But those two enter into a contract, which has now been approved by every court in the land, for these posters, which were effectively worth 150 million. You know those election posters you see on street lights and all of that kind of thing. So what happens from there? The ANC doesn't pay the amount they owe. So Ezulwini Investment first tries internal channels. Eventually they take the ANC to court. It goes to the High Court. It goes to the Supreme Court of Appeal, which is when I did my video on it. And then the ANC appealed that to the Constitutional Court. The Con Court refused to hear it. So legally speaking, no matter what the ANC may protest, there was a contract to provide this money. The ANC didn't pay. Now, curiously, just before the 2024 election, we then heard that there has been a settlement, and I want to bring up a graphic for you to have a look at. And effectively what this says is the ANC releases this media statement to say the ANC confirms that it has settled out of court with Ezulwini Investments. The matter has been resolved in the best interests of both parties. So everyone thinks, okay, some agreement has been made. The ANC found money from somewhere and they've managed to pay the service provider. Guess what? It looks like the settlement has now fallen apart. So effectively, what has happened now is that Ezulwini has said, we owed a debt, we entered into a settlement, the settlement hasn't been paid, we need our money. The courts have already agreed there was a contract in place. So now we are moving to attach assets. What does that mean? It means if someone owes you something and they can't pay you, you go and get the assets in recompense for that lack of payment. What are these assets? They're movable assets at the moment. So apparently, recently, according to this News 24 report, computer equipment, kitchen appliances worth about 140,000 were removed by the sheriff. But that doesn't even begin to repay the debt, right? Because the debt is in the region. The writ of execution, which is a document which says that you can attach the assets, the writ of execution says 85 million. So this is probably roughly the settlement amount they agreed on. So that means that after you go for the immovable property, the movable property, things that are movable, like a laptop or a microwave or a desk or a chair, you then can go for movable property. So Ezulwini say that they are going to move for the ANC's actual properties like Luthuli House in order to get paid back their debt, and then also go for some of their local offices and their provincial offices. I'm sure the ANC has a mighty large property portfolio when you think about it, assuming they own some of those properties and they don't just rent. So that's the case, but also the bank account, one of the bank accounts has been attached. They may go for other bank accounts. So what are the consequences? Now, I've seen it reported in different places. Lawyers, let me know in the comments what you think about this, because it can be quite tricky between the Companies Act, insolvency law, and the fact that this is a political party. My understanding is that because the ANC is a voluntary association and it's a political party, not a company, as you couldn't move for liquidation on something that's not defined as a company in the Companies Act. Similarly, in terms of insolvency proceedings, these are proceedings where an individual can't pay their debts and then they become insolvent. Again, that's about just normal people like you and me, so individuals. Again, the ANC is not an individual. So as far as I understand, there is no law preventing a bankrupt political party from contesting an election. But that's as far as I could read in the quick time that I had to make this video. Let me know down below if there are any lawyers, if you think my reading is correct. I've seen it corroborated by a few lawyers in news reports. But I think this idea that the ANC can't contest elections is wrong. I think it's based on the fact that unrehabilitated insolvents can't become members of parliament. But again, that's about individual members, not political parties. And there may be questions about political rights. If there are millions of South Africans who lend their support to the ANC as a party. Just because of its financial status, I'm not convinced it couldn't actually contest electorally, because Section 19 rights of the Constitution would come into play there. Be that as it may, whether the ANC gets liquidated as a party or not, maybe there are companies that are linked to the ANC, or there are subsidiary companies within the broader umbrella structure, then we could see perhaps liquidation proceedings in those companies or towards those companies. But I don't think the question is whether the ANC contests elections or not. I think the question is, what financial and image, reputation damage does this do to the ANC on the eve of another election? Because let's get one thing straight. The ANC is preaching to South Africa about its new economic plan. I want you to take a look at this video, and then I want to tell you why this matters in the context of the attachment of its own assets. Have a look at the ANC's new message about a new economic plan that will renew the economy.
As the ANC, we have identified specific interventions to advance the vision of the National Development Plan and the economic program of the government and the medium-term development plan. These interventions are intended to support government's proposed implementation plan on growth and inclusion, and which inform the annual performance plans of various government departments.
So fam, I have one simple but ultimately devastating question for the ANC. How are you going to fix the economy if your own assets are being attached by the sheriff? You want South Africans to believe that you will be able to fix all the economic chaos around us as an entity that cannot fix its own economic house and is having its microwaves and kitchens removed. Guys, please. From the office. We're living in La La Land, people. And the other thing is also just like, how many plans can one political party come up with? Even in that speech, the president said they've come up with a new 10-point plan that will reinforce the National Development Plan, which will form part of the medium-term development agenda. So 3 plans in one. And then there was, once upon a time, there was the 9-point plan. Then there was the, obviously we had GEAR, we had Asgisa, we had the new development path. Every time the ANC is in trouble, instead of fixing the problem and just getting on with it, they announce a new plan to try and convince South Africans that this time is going to be different. And it's been repeated to the point of absurdity now. No one believes in the ANC's economic plan until we see economic progress. Yes, sure, state-owned enterprises are in a better state than they were when they were catastrophically failing, but that's praising a fish for swimming. You destroyed Eskom in the first place. We can't give you brownie points because suddenly we have lights for 6 months. Again, cool, freight rail is starting to snail and move a bit, but you broke it, so we're not going to give you points for starting to fix it. Yeah, SAA is kind of getting back, but again, it was never supposed to be broken in the first place. True economic progress means growth is up, unemployment is down, inequality is down, poverty is down, hunger is down. I saw reports about children dying from malnutrition in the Eastern Cape the other day. So no, ANC, we're not interested in your new economic plan until you can pay your debts and deliver economic growth for the country. So having said that, let's turn our attention, because we have to keep the focus on this Mkhwanazi story. We've been one of the platforms that has constantly kept you updated on the Madlanga Commission, Mkhwanazi's allegations, and the accountability for that. And tomorrow, as I shoot this, Parliament begins its all-important inquiry into Mkhwanazi's allegations. Now, I must say, I haven't been particularly inspired by the build-up meetings to this moment, which have been conducted from MPs' cars, and MPs have been struggling to figure out how Zoom works. But now the real deal begins. And I must say, this is a really important moment that MPs need to seize. I don't know about ANC MPs because they're in a very difficult position. Their party is implicated, their leaders are implicated, and so they're probably going to do what they always do, which is try to defend the indefensible. But they don't have a majority in this committee. If you combine all the opposition parties, they are a majority. So a few important things to keep an eye on. What is the DA going to do? Is the DA going to back up the ANC? In some ways, like they've done over the Phala matter, which they said, we're not really that interested anymore. VBS corruption is more important. Are they going to shore up the ANC and side with their GNU partner? Or are they going to pursue accountability fully, which could seriously damage the ANC and possibly even unravel the GNU in the worst case scenario for the ANC? So I'm going to keep a very close eye because the DA made its name in terms of anti-corruption in Parliament. Will it stick to that principle and make sure it gets right to the bottom, no matter how high this goes, even if it reaches the office of the president? Then, of course, we'll see how prepared is the MK party. Will they come out guns blazing? Will they be ready for the task at hand as the biggest opposition party outside the GNU in this committee? What will the EFF do? How will it perform? Julius Malema is a member of this committee. I know he's also serving on another parliamentary body, the Judicial Service Commission, or he's the parliamentary rep there, so I'm not sure if he's going to be sitting this week or not. But it'll be interesting to see how he performs. You've got an MP like Glynis Breitenbach, the DA MP and former prosecutor, who can really bring her prosecutorial experience to bear as she asks probing and penetrating questions, which she often does in parliamentary settings. This really matters, and I'm begging South Africa's MPs to stand up and do South Africa proud right now, to really probe and get the answers that South Africa desperately needs, to leave no stone unturned, to pursue every single potential political office that could be involved in this, whether it impinges on your own political ambitions or goals in the short term or not. In particular, we know that President Ramaphosa has already been mentioned at the Matlanga Commission. We know that President Ramaphosa needs to tell us whether he condoned the disbandment of the Political Killings Task Team. We've already got a lot of testimony around him. We need to know the role of Morgan Maumela, his nephew, and whether Ramaphosa was aware of Maumela's interventions in the Tembisa hospital, and whether or to what extent Maumela is linked to Kat Matlala. But it's not just about the president. It could be about the deputy president. It could be about Fikile Mbalula. It could be about the speaker. Just whoever might be implicated. I'm not saying these people are implicated at the moment, but we need to pursue every potential line and not defend politicians. And if the ANC is going to defend politicians, then for love of country, the South African opposition parties, I don't care whether the DA doesn't like the MK or EFF doesn't like the DA or what. We need those parties to come together to get to the truth and to unearth what needs to be unearthed. This is a different process because these MPs have a little more leeway. It's not a directly judicial process. So we are likely to see more political questions, although of course there will be rules. And so MPs have a bit more latitude, I would say, than an evidence leader who's an advocate at a commission. But that would mean that opposition parties really have to be very strategic about the questions they ask right from the beginning so that we can get the answers we need. I'm really looking forward to the commission. I'm really looking forward to the parliamentary inquiry. The commission's on a bit of a break, but SMWX will be bringing you the parliamentary inquiry live, so look out for those live streams and rather watch on SMWX and support mainstream media. Fam, that's a roundup of everything that is happening in our country. Keep it locked on SMWX. Take us to 400,000 subscribers. Buy yourself an SMWX hoodie at smwx.store. Become a member of the channel so you can continuously support us on a month-on-month basis. And tell your aunt, your uncle, your son, your daughter to get wise and start watching SMWX, because this is the place where we all decode, interpret, and understand South African politics together. I'll see you on the next one, fam. Should be here tomorrow as we react to day one of Parliament. Keep it locked. Are you a member of SMWX?